I know you were calling it a day in the life of an SLPA, but I thought it'd be interesting to say a year in the life. This is my first year as an SLPA. Again, my name's Andrew Small, and I went to the University of Colorado. I have a degree in acting and performance. I've been in like 30 plays and musicals since I was 5 years old, and had many careers throughout the years, jobs, if you want to call them that. And then finally ended up going back to school to study SLHS and speech. I work at a charter school in North Denver, where I'm the only SLPA for approximately 85 students on my caseload. There are 2,000 students at this school. It's a K through 12. And moving right along, I'll just jump right in there and talk about the SLPA's responsibilities, and these are just a few of them. So the number one thing I would say is, you really want to know your caseload personally. You will have the opportunity to read and go overview all their IEPs, the individualized education plans. You'll read their profile, a diagnosis if they have any, their specific speech and language goals, and then the number of minutes that they're required to be serviced each week. Most students are 60, most students are 30 minutes a week, while others are 60. And some might only be, 15 minutes a month. It just depends on where they're at with their goals. So the next responsibility is your schedule. So you'll create your schedule for the students, when you're going to see them, when you're going to pull them out of class, maybe push in services. This is usually weekly. Some of them I do see every day. It just helps for them to hear, say they're working on articulation, it just to reinforce that every day with them, just for 5 minutes. I've seen incredible growth with students over time, just by pulling them out and working with them in the hallway for just a couple minutes each day. But your intervention times vary. You'll have groups of students or you'll have individual students. When you group students together, you want them to, have similar IEP goals, so that they can work together in a group. And one thing to keep in mind is that school schedules will change your schedule constantly. This being my first year, I didn't know when testing was happening. I didn't know when field trips were coming up or other in-school events, and you'll show up to the class to pull up a student and they're not there. So it's good to just have that relationship with the teachers and have them, let you know when those kinds of events are coming up so you can plan and maybe reschedule the student for later in the week. So you want to be proactive. Like I said, you want to communicate with your classroom teachers and your special education team. I can't emphasize enough how important your input is, updating the teachers so they can talk to the parents, updating your SPED team so they know exactly what's going on with the students. I think it's real important to attend parent-teacher conferences and get that face-to-face time with parents. It's helpful if the SLP can be there with you, because if the parents ask you anything like real specific about the students, an SLPA can't really talk to that so much as the SLP can. You don't want to give any misinformation. So it's important just to kind of keep it basic when you're in front of the parents. Also, I have in-class observations on here. A lot of times your students will be getting up in front of their class to do a presentation on polar bears or whatever they're studying. And if you can help them out in your speech time with them, and help them prepare for that presentation, and then go to their class and be there for them and support them, and your teachers and the students will really appreciate that. Next up is you report to your SLP daily, multiple times a day. You update them with data, any questions or concerns you have about the students, suggestions for lesson activities, and then always ask them for help. They are there to support you 100%, and you're a great asset to them, absolutely. And I'll explain why in the next slide. Most importantly are the interventions. This is where you pull the students out of class. They will get in a groove with you. They will know when you're coming to their class, and they just instinctually look up and they'll just see you at the door and they know, oh, this is my time. And they'll just come with you and you take them into the hallway. I'm fortunate enough to have my own office at the school, but I don't know if that happens everywhere. You just kind of have to work with what you have in the setting that you're working in. During these interventions, about half of my students are articulation, and the other half are expressive, receptive, and vocabulary goals in their IEP. I have a couple that are working on fluency and stuttering. Next up is if you do have your own space, you want to keep that really nice and organized, keep it sanitized. Just make it feel fresh and new for each group or individual that comes in for therapy. You just want to make it a safe and just a comforting place to be, because it is therapy for these kids, and it can be stressful, and you just want to make it as fun for them as possible. One of my recommendations is definitely keep all your games out of sight, put them in a closet or hide them somehow, because the kiddos will always ask you, can we play a game? And you just have to say, yes, we can play a game, but we need to work hard to play hard. So maybe with the last couple of minutes, we can certainly, we can play a game, some Go Fish or Candyland, something like that. So this is just a comparison chart of an SLP versus an SLPA. Your SLP is very busy writing all the time and doing evaluations. Every student receives an annual evaluation as well as a tri-annual evaluation. The annual evaluation will help with adjusting their goals, because they might kind of, if they're working on first grade vocabulary, well, they might achieve that goal in that year, so we'll move them up to second grade vocabulary list. The triannual is to determine if they're still eligible for speech services. A lot of my students have what we say graduated. They no longer qualify, and that's an exciting day for these guys and their families. So they're busy with that, and they're busy writing IEPs. They write the profile and observations. They include data, the goals, and the minutes. And then another big part of their job is they have to watch you in the interventions themselves. And they're there to offer advice and constructive criticism and help you plan lessons and just answer questions. Like I said, always ask them for help, and they're there to support you. As an SLPA, you're going to do the more informal screenings. You can certainly sit in on the evaluations, but just as an observer. They went to grad school, so they do all the important evaluation part of it. But you and I'll talk about screenings here in just a moment. But that's where you sit down with a student that was referred to you by their teacher. You have to get permission from the parents to just take 10, 15 minutes and run a language screener with them, and then talk about that with the SLP and the teacher afterwards and kind of take things from there. Your interventions, they usually last 30 minutes with individuals or groups that have similar IEP goals. Data collection, I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit as well. I always take data on articulation and then on language as much as I can. And then your weekly lesson planning. I think it's really important to have like a warm-up activity, kind of get them comfortable and talking before you dive deep into the language activity for the day. One of the warm-up activities I do is like a feelings check-in, and just have the students tell you, how are you feeling today? Happy, sad, cold, scared, whatever it is that they're feeling. And then ask them why. You just want to keep them talking and not ask just yes or no questions. You really want to get some more information from them, and of course get them to speak in complete sentences and things like that. So on to lesson planning. I just recommend you be creative, make it fun, and most importantly, make it appropriate for the students' IEP goals, their age level, their grade level. And then as you're working through them with it, you want to identify if it's too easy, is it too difficult? And then we have, and maybe you've heard this in class already, but we talk about scaffolding. So you can scaffold up or down. If it's too easy, make it a little bit more difficult. If it's too difficult, tone it down a little bit for them. If it's too easy, the students will get bored and they'll tell you, this is too easy. They're like, okay. If it's too difficult, then you'll see maybe that they're getting a little bit stressed, and let's just take it down a notch and make it easier for them to work through. So I put some resources up here for you guys. There's Teachers Pay Teachers, which is a great website for, there's free material on there, but there's also ones you pay for. They could be anywhere from $1 to $20. And these are activities that teachers and educators and SLPs have uploaded onto this website. And there's just thousands and thousands of them. And you just go through it. That'll help you get some ideas for lesson planning. Pinterest is really great, of course, just tons of free stuff on there. And then my favorite is Superduper publications, and I will talk about them in just a moment. So when it comes to data collection, it's really whatever works best for you. I said I take data for all our TIC and most of my language interventions that I can. I started off using an Excel spreadsheet. That was okay. I was emailing it back and forth to my SLP, but then we discovered Google Sheets, which is a much better platform for us because you can share that data and information in real time. So I can update it and she can update it because she's always asking me, weekly, we've got, so-and-so's IEP meetings this week. I need the data on them, but she doesn't have to necessarily keep sending me those emails if she knows she can just access Google Sheets and just see it in real time. And then the other one, like that SLP data sheet, something I found on, Pinterest or just Google Images. But it's really up to you, whatever works best for you. So the screeners, I think every SLPA should have a pocket-sized screener. There's a free one online called the Little B Speech Screener. And that, as you can see there, is basically a bunch of pictures. And then there's a form associated with that. And this helps screen articulation and vocabulary levels. Like kiddos don't know piano, when they're younger, or they might not know smoothie. But you just kind of work through them with that. But you're really listening just to see if they're hitting those speech sounds correctly, and then checking in on vocab. Next to that is the Superduper Quick Take-Along Speech and Language Screener. That's a mouthful. This really does fit in your pocket, and I love this little booklet. It helps you identify all kinds of areas of concern, including articulation, following directions, grammar, phonological awareness, pragmatics and social skills, just vocabulary. I mean, the list goes on and on. The little form to the right of it is a free download from Superduper's website, which I didn't know existed until recently. So I just kind of created my own, but that is very helpful. And these screeners are for when, like I said, the teacher identifies a concern and they don't know if it's a difference or a disorder, which you talk about constantly in school. I work with mostly ESL students, so English is a second language, and most often it's a difference. It's just a language difference. But yeah, we've certainly ID'd new students, and they eventually get on an IEP, and then they are added onto my caseload. So remember this name, everyone, Superduper Publications. You can order I'm sure you can order a free catalog from their website. This is a company that was made by SLPs for SLPs and their assistants. The materials are super high quality, which therefore means they're kind of expensive, but they're worth it. Especially if you get a budget. You know, when you get into a school, they'll give you maybe $100 budget, and you can order some of these activities if they don't have them already. But on the first one is just box sets of RTIC flashcards, and they are great because your interventions with articulation students is just repetition. Let's just hit those R sounds for 30 minutes and then initial, medial, and final position of words or clusters. Next up is that's a grammar game the kids just love, but it talks about all kinds of, like pronouns and everything that they need to learn to develop complete sentences. And then next to that is a great activity. It's a magnet board where you can swap out the scenes and have the kids talk about what's going on in the scene. You can talk about locational terms, new vocabulary, articulation. I mean, it's just endless what you can do with all of these games. And you can take those flashcards and just play Go Fish with them or Memory. They love playing Memory, and they think they're just playing a game. But we have all the R cards out, and they're working on their speech sounds, which is really great. So what is the rewarding part of my job? I would have to say it's absolutely when a student makes progress towards their speech goal. For example, I have one student who has been working on S clusters all year. So that's SK words like skunk or SP words like Spider-Man. And for months and months, this young man I could only get him to say cider man. And then you learn some techniques from your SLP, and they teach you how to start with that S sound and then hit that target P sound. And now he can say Spider-Man. And the first time he said it, I mean, it just brought tears to my eyes. It was wonderful. And you'll see what it's like. It's really great. So anytime they make progress is a good thing. Lastly, teletherapy, which is where we're at now. I'm talking to you from my bedroom / teletherapy office now. I brought all the activities home from school and set up the office. This is, very new for most of us in the field. And likely it could carry on into 2021. I would like to think we'll be back to school in the fall, but I don't know if that's really a possibility, at least at my school, for various reasons. But some SLPs have been doing this for years. They do all their therapy from their home. So it's not exactly new to our field. It's just new to those of us that work in a school-based setting. So what I do is I had to set up a Google Hangout for every age group, K through 12, reach out to their parents, find out, did they have internet access? Do they have a Chromebook? And then, try and get them online, which has been pretty challenging. I have 85 students, and I've probably seen about 30 of them in the last month. And they don't always come at the same times that they're scheduled to do so. But I do pretty much the same thing I would do in class, have a nice warm-up activity or a game for them. The big change now is I just show them a video. There's some great websites from SLPs that have these non-verbal videos on YouTube. They're cartoons, and you have the student watch the cartoon, and then I ask them all the WH questions, who, what, when, where, why. Like I said before, you don't want to ask yes or no questions because that's all they have to say, and you want them really just to be talking away as much as they can. So they really seem to be enjoying that. One of the biggest challenges is controlling their behaviors online. It's a lot easier to do when you're face to face. I can get a kiddo to stop rocking back and forth in his chair, but now the kids are lying on the ground. They're sitting in a rocking chair and they're rocking back and forth so fast it makes you so dizzy. Or one kid got up and he got a snack out of the fridge while I was in the middle of our session, and I know he did it because he was sitting in his kitchen. So yeah, it's just that's one of the biggest challenges, and of course just getting them all there together at once. I don't have time to do individual therapy sessions anymore. There just aren't enough hours in the week, so I have to group them all together as an age group, which is unfortunate because they don't all have the same IEP goals. So, but we're doing the best that we can, and I'll have kind of all summer to think about how we can do this, do this better in the fall. I should mention that my SLP is with me for every therapy session online. We talk about it afterwards, how we can make it better, and just like if I was in the classroom, but she still has to observe me even though I'm doing teletherapy. So that's worked out really well, and she's just fantastic. So I've learned so much from my SLPs this year. They've really taken me under their wing and taught me so much, and I hope you all get that same opportunity. It is a great job and I love it. Thank you very much, everyone.